So today's Cardinal Lesson, we're going to be explaining, covering, reviewing the comprehensive financial plans that we create here at Cardinal. And when you go through the 7 worries, which are Social Security, Medicare, long-term care, IRA, 401k, treated separate from your other money, creating an income, estate planning, and taxes, there isn't that much unique that we offer at Cardinal in each of these 7 individual areas. I mean, it's just most of the stuff we've learned from other people or we've learned from practicing other organizations. And what makes us unique is just, first of all, listing them. And then what we're going to do in a financial plan for you, if you hire us to do that, is we're going to take and ask you questions about your preferences, your needs in all 7 of these areas, but more importantly, where you stand with them, how much you have in your IRA, how much money you have available, what you're going to get from Social Security, depending on when you start it, whether you're paying IRMAA for Medicare, whether you have long-term care insurance or not, and if you want to address that, how you're going to fund it. I mean, what makes us unique is our ability to deliver planning to you in each of these 7 areas, but then where we're unique is they all mix together. So I want Tom to share with you why we're doing this video today, why this topic today, why the comprehensive financial plan.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this video because we field this question a lot. It's like in our videos, we talk about doing financial plans and a common question, which is understandable. What is in this plan? Like, what do we get for this? And like Hans mentioned, what makes us unique, and I think what really helps us stand apart, is how all of these interact, right? If you make a decision in one area, it has impacts on all the other areas, right? There's consequences, and sometimes they're competing, right? Making a decision in one area could affect and be opposite of what we're trying to do in another area. And it's balancing all of that out, weighing all the differences, and coming up with a plan that's specific to you and can help you, not just general advice. And so I think again, that's where we're different. That's what helps us stand out. As we go through the video, we're going to show you examples of how all of these interact with each other. I think most people would benefit from this because a lot of times people have focused in, and a lot of times we meet them in one area because that's what they're concerned about. They've never even thought about these other areas, and we're trying to show them how they all interact with each other. So let me bring up the show notes, and then we'll get going through some examples. But we have the board, as always. You can find this at the link below on our video. It's also on our website at cardinalguide.com. And again, the example of the rest of the show notes is an example from Right Capital. That's the software we use to do some of the planning. I do want to point out that the plan you get is not just the software, right? It's not like we plug it in, print it out, and you're good to go. You get a custom plan specific to you where we sit down, we write it out. We use the software as a tool to do some of the calculations, help us figure out what the recommendations are on some of the areas. But the plan is not the software in and of itself. But again, we have an example of some of the screens. This isn't all of it, but some of the screens that are in the software, like Social Security, like cash flow planning. We have stuff from Roth conversion. So it's more entailed than what we've put here because we just wanted to give you a quick example of that. But again, I think you get a lot of value for the plan, and it's helpful to really see how all these interact. So let me turn it back to Hans, and we'll just get going here.
Yeah, where we have some difficulty um, in explaining this to a new customer coming in. And a lot of people, when they call us, they got one thing on their mind, okay? And they want to know if we will help them solve that one thing. And of course, the answer is yes. I mean, for instance, somebody's watched a bunch of videos and they they've done some research, a friend's done them, they want to do Roth conversions. And so they come in, and that's all they want us to do for us. They don't want any help managing their money. They don't want any help with Medicare. They don't want any help with Social Security. A lot of them think they already got all that figured out. And so and if somebody wants us to just deal with Roth conversions, we will. But we're going to have information about your tax rate and what tax planning you've done. Are you retired? Are you not retired? Are you married? Are you single? What sources of income? How much money you have outside of your IRAs? because we got to decide whether we're going to pay the tax there or not. So invariably, we end up, even when we do single issue planning for people, we end up partially doing a plan. So what we wanted to do today is just kind of open up the books and show you all these 7 individual worries, which if you've watched a lot of videos, you already know what we have to say about Social Security, and you know what we have to say about Medicare and blah, 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 blah. But what we're going to do today differently is we're going to talk about how we help you, like with Roth conversions. And once we implement a plan to do Roth conversions, we're going to drive up your Medicare costs through IRMAA. So what we're going to do differently today is we're going to talk about one problem that you come in with, and then we're going to show its effect on other areas. So I want to push it to Tom, and I want Tom to give a couple of examples of what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Roth conversions is a great one to start because we talk a lot about those in our videos. It's oftentimes a big thing that people are interested in. It's maybe something they haven't really considered up till now, and they're trying to figure out how much, the timing of that, what does that look like? And like Hans mentioned, if we decide to go that route, if we're recommending that, it has impacts on a lot of the areas on the board. Like for example, Social Security. Let's say you've started Social Security and we're doing Roth conversions, that's going to drive up the amount of taxes that you owe on Social Security, meaning you get to keep less of it, which isn't a stop sign, doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, but it's something we need to consider. Like he mentioned, it has an impact on Medicare, right? It potentially could drive up our IRMAA costs. And again, if you're familiar with IRMAA, that happens 2 years later. And so we need to do that in mind, keeping that a part of it. It could have an impact on your income, right? If we're doing conversions, we're paying more in taxes, we might have less money to spend, so we need to weigh that against each other. A lot of times they're doing it, one, to potentially leave the money from an estate standpoint to their kids or their beneficiaries in a much more tax advantage way, right? And so it has impacts on all these other things. And if we just focused on the one thing, making the Roth conversion the most efficient possible, and we didn't consider anything else, you might wake up one day like, why am I paying more for Medicare? Why am I having more taxes held for my Social Security? And it might not be the right plan for you, right? And again, that's where the plan is unique. Is it's very individualized, very specific to your situation, your preferences, your goals, sort of what you need to spend, your income needs are. And every plan looks different because of that, and not all two people are made the same. I'll use another example. Let's think of like long-term care. When people come in, we're doing planning on long-term care. Some people say, "Oh, I have enough. I'll self-fund that." Or they might say, "I already have long-term care," which is we'd love to hear it when they already have long-term care. But let's use an example of someone who thinks they have enough where they can just pay the cost if it were to happen. So well, let's think what those impacts are, right? If we don't plan for it, if we don't insure that risk, and it does happen, which there's a chance it could happen to any of us. Um, what happens there, right? Well, one, our income is impacted, right? Our cash flow, because it's a cash flow problem, is if you need care, there's a huge expense that is incurred that you didn't have before. You got to pay for it somehow. And so if you're married, that could impact the income that's coming in for your spouse, making them have to sort of take a step back from their lifestyle because the money is being redirected towards the care. It has an impact on legacy goals. Right now, we have less money going to the kids that we otherwise were doing. From a tax standpoint, where are we pulling the money from? Is it coming out of an IRA? Is it coming out of a taxable account? What are the taxes owed on that? I mean, it has this impact there, and where planning for it can help is it gives us more knowns, right? We have more things that we can count on, more things we can plan around, as opposed to having this huge cost happen down the road. I mean, I could go on and on all day about how all of these are connected, but when you start making decisions in one area, you really have to consider the impact of all the different areas, because we cannot give you really the best advice on any one area without considering all of them. And that's where I think a lot of people get miss some good planning opportunities, is they're solely focused on one. I'll use one more example, then I'll turn it back to Hans. Medicare. I can't tell you the number of people who've come in. We've maybe we told them about IRMAA, or maybe they got the letter, they didn't know it was coming, and they are solely focused on avoiding IRMAA. They hate it. They don't want to pay it. What can I do to not have to pay this extra cost? And there's plenty you can do to avoid it in that year, maybe the next year, maybe the next 5 years. But you have to start thinking long term, especially if you have a lot of money saved up in your IRA. When RMDs start, that might put you at the IRMAA levels anyways. Or if you're married and the first spouse passes away and you're filing taxes at the single tax filing rate and the IRMAA is the single IRMAA brackets, you might have a huge IRMAA problem at that point. And so a lot of times IRMAA planning, people who are focused on that, it's oftentimes short-sighted. They're not thinking long term, and they miss good planning now to maybe pay a little bit of IRMAA to avoid much higher IRMAA in the future. Oftentimes can make some sense, but they got to get over this fact that they're having to pay this extra cost that they wish they didn't have to. And so, again, everyone's situation is different. Sometimes we can avoid the IRMAA, right? Sometimes we're doing Roth conversions where we stay right below the IRMAA threshold. We can do that on an ongoing basis and never realistically not ever have to pay IRMAA, which is great. If we can do that, that's awesome. But if someone's income needs are higher than that, then we might not have a choice, right? Again, so they're all connected, and you need to do a plan that ties all of them together. And that's really what we provide when we're doing the financial plans for people.
So, like Roth conversions keeps coming up and keeps coming up because just about everybody we talk to, they want to know about it. Is it right for me? Is this something I want to do? And then as soon as we start explaining it to them, a lot of times they start pushing us back, and we're saying like, well, wait a minute. I mean, we're here for you. We're going to help you make a good decision. And what I was thinking when Tom was bringing up the first example of the people that want to do Roth conversions and they want to do it, and then they're ready to go, and then we want to show these other areas and what kind of a ripple effects that's going to have through their plan. But the question I want to ask them is, why do you want to do a Roth conversion? I mean, why do you want to pay more taxes than you have to this year? What's the purpose of that? And the answer to that is I want to have a tax-free account that's going to grow tax-free. Okay, and then I say, okay, great. And then what? Who's it for? And then, we're going to have to drill down, and we finally get to the point where people say, I don't really see myself spending that money in the IRA. I don't want to have minimum distributions. I want it to grow from this point forward tax-free. But ultimately, it's an estate planning issue that I want to give it to my children or my grandchildren, a tax-free account that they can then enjoy. So that's my motivation is over here in estate planning to do the Roth conversion. So just using that as an example, when we have somebody coming in that's considering doing this comprehensive financial plan, we're going to get to their IRA, and we just got some questions. With it, first of all, is if you still have not taken your Social Security, but you're ready to, and then you're kind of stuck in the decision: do I delay? Do I wait till 70? Do I take it now? We're going to want to know if you're open to making a withdrawal from your own IRA to replace your Social Security check that you're not getting because you're going to wait till 70 to get a larger check. And that's where that software comes in. The software is going to help us tell you whether this is a good idea or not. Okay, but the IRA is a source of money to live off of at any point in time and pay taxes off of, and it allows you to delay Social Security. So now we're talking about another area. We want to know about Roth conversion. We want to know about your preferences. Some people are dead set against it. I've looked at it, I've evaluated it. I'm not going to pay more taxes now than I have to. I'm going to push it down the road. And we want to know that when we're doing the financial plan. Then a lot of times when we talk to people for a while, we'll say, I might be open to it if you could make a case for it. And then, now there's an opening. And so you're not really paying us to do Roth conversions for you. You're paying us to help you make the decision and to lay out the facts and then give you our opinion on it. You're going to ultimately make the decision. We want to know if you're making a withdrawal for living expenses. If that's in your plan, and a lot of people are just doing that. They don't have a plan together. They're just taking out as much as they need and taking a little more here. And then they, when we're managing their money, we just kind of hearing ad hoc. We'd like to put some sense around that and, plan out your income. Now we're over here in cash flows and income. Like, how are we going to arrive at our number? We got a Social Security check, and then maybe we have other money outside of an IRA that we can withdraw from. Maybe we have some rental property or a pension. I mean, we're just going to build an income, but is there a withdrawal going on, or do you need to start one for living expenses? And then we got to deduct the tax out of that, because when you pull money out of your IRA or 401k, you got to pay taxes. So you're going to get net money. Do you have an RMD strategy? And when you ask people that at 65, do you have an RMD strategy? Most of them just say, well, no. I mean, so they have the default strategy, the government plan. I'm going to take nothing that I don't have to until I'm 73. And then I'll come up with an RMD strategy, or you really won't have to put a lot of effort into it because there's charts. I could tell you that in 5 minutes. If you are 73 or you turn 73 this year, if you give me your IRA balance, or we can estimate what it is, or we can pull what it was last year on 12/31, we can just calculate it. But what I'm talking about is, there a strategy, knowing that's coming? Do you have a strategy for the rest of your life and then your spouse's life? Because the RMDs get really interesting when the first spouse dies and then the beneficiary is the surviving spouse, and now they're filing taxes. They're paying the widow's tax. They're on the RMD as a single taxpayer. So we're maybe going to do something with the IRA so that when they get in that situation, they're in a better spot, like living off of Roth converted amount. And then, have you done IRA estate planning? Have you thought about who's this IRA going to when both you and your spouse pass away, which a lot of times is the children? And then, do we have a strategy for that, an estate plan? Because you hand your kids a big tax problem. Some people aren't worried about that. If my kids have a tax problem 20 years from now, that's not my problem. Here they're getting the money, they didn't work for it. That's for some people. Other people are like, man, I don't want to do that. How are your kids going to react if you have 2 or 3 children? My guess is they're going to treat their IRA distributions differently if they all get equal amounts. I can show you some historical things. So those are the questions that we want to ask you and we want to learn when you're coming in considering one of these financial plans. And I just talked about IRAs, or 401k IRA. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, all of these are connected. I think, like Hans mentioned, they're all where we are unique and where we shine is how they all interact with each other in giving good recommendations. I will make the point when we're doing a plan, we will give you a specific recommendation for each of these 7 areas. And now the plan's not limited to that, right? If you have a unique situation that you also need advice on, we will provide that as well. But it's not going to be like, oh, you could do this, maybe that. We will sit down, and it's a process, right? It's we'll have several conversations. We'll get a feel for what makes the most sense for you and sort of what your preferences are. But at the end of the day, that final plan will have a very specific recommendation of what we think you should do on all 7 areas. And again, we'll use one more example. Social Security, right? So a common question is, when should I take it? And do I delay it? Do I not? Should my spouse take it? Should they not? And that's a decision that you'll live with through the rest of your life, right? I mean, that once you start that check, that is a number you get plus inflation forever, or as long as you're alive. And then that could have an impact on your spouse. But that could start crowding out room for like Roth conversions, or that could, mean we take less money out of the investment accounts, or if we're delaying it, it means we take more out of the investment accounts early on while we're delaying Social Security. We need to take into consideration, do you have any health concerns, right? What is your expected life expectancy? Now, again, no one can know that for sure, but if you're coming in with, terminal cancer, it's going to be a different recommendation than someone coming in who just ran a marathon and is perfectly healthy, right? Those are just different situations. And it has impacts on potentially IRMAA, has impacts on, the tax brackets. I mean, they're all connected. I mean, we could spend all day showing you how they're all there, but I think you've seen that they interact with each other. That's what we specialize in. We are experts in all of these areas and can really give you pretty good advice.
So, just like I did IRAs before, like in the area of taxes. So we do tax planning in this comprehensive financial plan. Things we're going to want to tell you, ask you questions about, is tax bracket management. Do you have a plan to choose what tax bracket you're in? And you do that through Roth conversions, or just pulling out and paying the taxes in an intelligent way, um, and then maybe just saving the money outside of a Roth, so that it's accessible to you. That's all tax bracket management, is looking forward and trying to be smart about how we make distributions out of the IRA so we're coming right under certain thresholds. Roth conversion, will still filing married joint. I mean, when we show this to people, even maybe when they just start doing RMDs, maybe we've got somebody at 75 and we're saying, you're both alive, you're both doing well, but one of you may pass before the other, and then the other one lives on for a long time. And if we're going to consider Roth conversions to kind of reduce these RMDs, after we take the RMD, then we can do some conversion on top of that. We may want to get some of that done while we're doing married filing joint. Um, we're going to manage Social Security and IRMAA tax. So, the IRMAA is on your Medicare, but it's driven by your adjusted gross income or your modified adjusted gross income. And Social Security is taxed based on your other income. These are taxes that we can manage, and then manage the net investment income tax, which we'll talk about that in another video. When we go into estate planning, I mean, we just want to go through the questions. IRAs are taxed heavily when passed to the next generation. I mean, that's an obvious thing. Our Roths aren't. The widow's penalty, which we've already talked about that. Couples, with couples, the smaller Social Security checks stops. So if you got a big Social Security check and then a kind of big Social Security check, and those two things together are a big part of your income, when the first one dies, the smaller check goes away. So now we're talking about Social Security, and we're into estate planning. Anyhow, we're going to look at your will, your powers of attorney, consider a possible trust. I mean, all that's part of the comprehensive plan. So I could talk on and on and on and on all day today. The purpose of this is to show you all the stuff, or just give you a taste of all the stuff we do, and where we are experts in all 7 of these areas. And in these 7 areas, where our expertise comes into play, especially doing the plans, is looking at the ramifications in all the other 6 areas when we're mucking around in one area. So I want to bring Tom back on for some final comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, everyone's situation is different. Your specific needs, your goals, this where you are, like are you just retiring? Are you already been retired? We can help all comers. And again, every plan looks different, every recommendation is different, specific to you. And it is a more collaborative approach. The show notes have that printout of the software. The plan is much more than the software. And I would say the value of the plan is more the interactions, the talking back and forth, all the meetings we have to lead to that final plan. You will get a written one at the end of the day, but really the benefit, I think, the value really is in the discussions. It's in the collaboration with you, going alongside you to make sure you have the best recommendations possible. I don't know. I don't think we've mentioned before. Typically, we charge $1,000 for these plans, so it's not super costly to do it, but it gets you in there, you get a lot of advice. I think you get well more value than just $1,000. In their situations we might charge more or less just depending on what's going on, but I think that is just give you an idea of what kind of what it takes to kind of do that plan for you. I don't know if you have anything to mention on that, Hans.
Yeah, well, the plan's going to include Social Security planning, like when to take it and how you're going to pay taxes on it, Medicare planning, what kind of insurance and IRMAA, long-term care planning. What kind of solution are you going to get? Are you going to buy insurance? Are you going to pay for it yourself? We need to plan for that. 401k and IRA planning is, most people have no distribution plan. They have an investment plan, and they've just been watching it go up. Now that you're retired or anticipating retirement, you got to have a plan. And before we start planning out the money we're pulling out of there and paying taxes, how much of it do you need? What's the IRA for? Are you going to leave it to the next generation, or are you going to use it yourself? And if you're going to use it yourself, how much of it are you going to use yourself? And are we going to think about the 80s and the 90s, where either one or both of you is alive? If we start taking out too much now and we have a bad market, are we going to be stuck in the 80s and 90s? I mean, all of that falls under the IRA 401k planning. We talked about income because that becomes, priority number one with people in retirement, out of the retirement. What am I going to live off of once I'm not working? Estate planning, that's an area where it's much more broad than people have traditionally that they've brought in. And if you've done some estate planning, we'll take that and give you our opinion on all of that. We're not attorneys, so we can't implement things, but we actually have some that we collaborate with. So we do this in all 50 states in DC, and most of our clients meet us and work with us on Zoom. So we can do this for you anywhere in the US. And we're very interested in doing so. And then tax planning. And this is all 7 of those elements come in together. I want to bring Tom back on. I'm Hans Scheil.
And I'm Tom Griffith.
And we thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.